Alright, welcome back to the Pi-Safe build series. This should be, I believe, part 4. We're going to get started on making the top for this thing. You see me laying out some cut lines. I just want to get this down to rough size before I put it together. On here I have a second line that I disregarded. I flipped the board over and there's a check that went a little bit further than the initial mark, so good thing I flipped it over. Alright, I do not have a jointer, so I'm doing the planer sled trick. I don't love this, but it gets the job done. I would love to get a jointer though, just not in the foreseeable future. Again, I don't love this. It gives me okay results. For those of you who may not know what the planer sled or the jointer sled method is, it's you take an otherwise unmilled board. In this case, I have some twist, so the board is rocking, and you place it onto a known flat surface. I'm using some melamine here, and you just shim it up on those corners that are rocking, and then secure those shims somehow, and you just run it through your planer. And then when you run it through your planer, once that top face is milled, you can flip it over and run it through the planer as if it was normally being milled. Here I'm just taking my track saw and I'm going to joint one edge. I will take this edge and I'll put it against the table saw to get a parallel edge, so that I have two jointed edges. And then I will go ahead and do the glue up for the top. You'll see here now that I have two perfectly jointed boards, perfect seam here. I'll go ahead and mark out. I'm going to do some dowel pins for alignment, strictly for alignment here, just because these are pretty much milled down to the final size and I don't have any room to mill them any further down. I'll go ahead and put the dowel pins in. I don't like this jig. It is good at this particular task only, but I haven't really found many other uses for it. I'd like to get another doweling jig, but for the time being this one will do. I'll take my dowels. I cut these off camera just from I think it was a 4-foot length of 1/4-inch dowel. I'll round over the end so that it goes into the dowel holes a little bit smoother. A little trick here is when you're doing a panel clamp like this, if you don't glue to get onto your clamps, you can put some tape where that joint will be. I've learned this the hard way where I've had to go back and clean up my my clamps, and it just saves a whole lot of work if you go ahead and put this step in there, whether it be the one joint or one seam here, or more than that. Just doing that one step will save you a lot of time when it comes to cleaning your clamps later. I'll be using just 3 clamps for this panel. That's more than enough. I'll use these parallel clamps on the ends, and then I have a bar clamp here. And let me know if you guys have ever had this issue before where your clamp slips as you're tightening it. I have, I think, 12 of these bar clamps, 48-inch lengths, and maybe 2 or 3 of them I have this where the when you turn the screw, the opposite end of the clamp just slides down. I found that a lot of times if I hit it with the mallet, it will get that a little something to bite into and it won't slide, but in this particular case it did not work, so I just switched out to a different clamp and threw the oven off to the side. For another time I'll address it, but it's very frustrating. I let this sit in clamps for a day or two and come back out, and I'm taking the scraper, getting off any of the extra glue that I did not get when I wiped it off initially. And then I'll move it over to my other part of my workbench here on the sand. I'll do my normal progression of 80, 120, 180 grit. I like these little benchtop cookies to get everything off my workbench. Once I'm done sanding through my last grid, I'll use my track saw to clean up an edge, and then I'll square that edge using my TSO track square. This is another example of why I like the benchtop cookies. I can set my blade depth beyond the width of the material and not have to worry about hitting my benchtop. I'm going to go ahead and cut this to length now. I made this a little oversized. I think I mentioned at the beginning of the video. And then the last cut I'll make on this, I'll use my new clean reference edges, and I will square this off and cut it to final width. I'm going for about 3/4 of an inch overhang on the front and both sides, and I'll be flush on the back. And then once this is done, I'll go ahead and test it off camera, make sure I didn't make a mistake before I move to the next step. The next step, I'm going to go ahead and take a router, and I'm going to router as chamfer in this. I'm not going for any particular size chamfer, I just want a nice clean edge all the way around. I was using my trim router, and it worked okay for the first pass, the second pass, but when I kept lowering the bit, I started noticing that the bit was actually hitting the base plate on the inside, so I had to pull out the larger router that had a little bit more clearance in the base plate. All right, so I have the bit and the new router. I believe this is the Bosch 3 1/4 horsepower. I bought this to eventually put into a router table when that time comes. I was having some video issues where my camera kept shutting off after 30 seconds, so I don't have any good footage of the Bosch router finishing up the profile there. I'll come in here and do some hand sanding to clean up the edges. I've learned the hard way not to use the random orbital or any other power sander when you're doing narrow edges like this. It'll just round them over. So this is probably one of the best things that I've bought as far as sanding, is this 3M sanding pad. It gives me a really nice edge, keeps my nice crisp lines and edges, and then I don't have to worry about anything rolling over, rounding over. All right, here's a quick preview. You can see that cut that I was talking about, but that'll come out no problem when I put the Z fasteners in. I kind of like this two-tone top. You know, it's not obviously two-tone, it's just not finished yet. But I wish I had put, you know, like maybe a maple top or some other lighter color as the top, because I thought it looked really nice. I'll go ahead and wipe down the piece here with some mineral spirits, get any residual dust or particles or anything else on the surface that I don't want on there. I did vacuum this off and blow this off, but you can see the rag is still pretty dirty, so this is why I do it, so that it doesn't end up in the finish. I'm going to apply a second coat to several of these surfaces on the already finished cabinet, or PieSafe. The tried and true can says to scuff the surface with some 4-aught steel, so that's what I'm doing right here, and then I'll come back and I'll blow this off, vacuum it off, and then wipe it down with mineral spirits as well before applying the finish to the top and then to this already finished cabinet. I'll leave this to the montage now, just the rest of this process that I'm going through, and then the applying the finish itself.
You, Daddy.
Huh?
I love you, Daddy.
Oh, I love you. All right, let's go ahead and get this flipped and get the top fastened down with those Z fasteners. It's just easier for me to do this upside down than where I can see down instead of trying to reach up. I'm gonna go ahead and center everything on the top here, make sure I have the correct overhang on the sides and over the front end. Nice reveal. And then I'll go ahead and put the fasteners in, kind of just push down a little bit to make a divot where I can drill. And I'll do this, I'll put 2 on either side and 2 on the front and 2 on the back. And then this will hold it down nice and tight and very secure. All right, let's move on to the back panel. I actually filmed this when I made the drawers, and I cut out for the drawer bottoms, but I saved it for this video. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this to size. The back of the carcass is actually just a little out of square. I think over the entire length of it is just under 1/16 out of square. And so I did have to make a special cut on this to match that angle. It would have gone in if I had cut it square. I would just have a little bit more of a reveal, and I wanted a nice tight fitting back panel. I applied finish off camera. I'm gonna go ahead and pin it on here just to keep it in place while I drill out for my fasteners. I'll put a couple of fasteners along each length and then get this thing flipped back over, and we're just about done with this project. I'm really glad I decided to put the second coat of finish on the actual cabinet itself. It really brought the color back. Had been kind of getting faded sitting in the garage, and then the sun in the evening was kind of fading it. So I'm glad I went through and did the process of reapplying that second coat.